12 months before Tommy was born, his parents met on a plane traveling from Naples to New York. Mary Esposito saw a tall black man looking in her direction. She was at the airport in Naples, Italy, and this stranger was just staring at her. When she was much younger, a group of thugs confronted her just a few blocks from her home. She thought she was done for, but then a strange woman walked up and said, "What are you punks doing with my sister?" At that point they left Mary alone and turned their attention to the strange woman. The woman smiled and she said, "Oh, you think you can take me? Well, you probably can. But then you would have to deal with my boyfriend. You know who that is?" After she had asked that question, the boys looked at each other and lifted their shoulders. The woman then said, "No, I didn't think so. Because if you did, you wouldn't be messing with us." The woman then took Mary by the hand and led her to safety. It turned out that the woman had been bluffing, and she warned Mary that the bluff doesn't work every time, so she should learn to be more careful. That was years ago, and now in the airport in Naples, she found herself in need of a bluff. A tall black man was staring at her, so she stared back, looked him up and down, then turned away as though he was beneath her interest, and walked away. She was flying economy class to New York City, in the USA. When she finally boarded the plane, the stewardess informed her that she had been upgraded to first class. She was surprised to find herself sitting next to the man who had been staring at her. She was a little apprehensive at first. Then she decided to speak to him as he was now pretending to ignore her. "How do you do, sir? My name is Mary Esposito. Did you upgrade me to first class, or was it my rich brother who was waiting for me in New York?" Then she suddenly realized that she had just given her real name to a perfect stranger. She was suddenly scared. But she recovered quickly and tried to look powerful and confident and hoped that her sudden fear didn't show on her face. "Don't tremble," she thought to herself. "Don't panic. Predators don't look for fights. They look for victims." She tried to look like a fighter. She tried to stare him down. He looked at her then, took a deep breath and said, "I was sitting here trying to think of what to say, but since you figured it out, I guess honesty is the best policy." He paused before continuing. Then he said, "There is something about you. I think it's your blue eyes. Most of the people in Naples have brown eyes. You don't see that many blue-eyed people this far south." She asked to switch seats with him so she could look out the window, and she agreed. After they had settled again, he asked her, "What do you see?" And she said, "The clouds. We are flying above the clouds." In an attempt to keep the conversation going, he said, "If it wasn't for the clouds, you would be able to see the Atlantic Ocean, the second largest ocean in the world. If this plane were to go down right now, we would be far from the sight of land." She giggled and said, "That's a nice conversation to have while we are flying." Doubling down on his point, he said, "What I'm saying is that, in such an event, and there was only one person I could save, it would be you." Definitely not a predator, she thought to herself. He was too sweet and innocent. His manner was too open. But then again, he could be a super predator, one that lulls you into a false sense of security, then bites your head off. But somehow, she doubted it. He just said that he would save her before all others in the event of a plane crash. She smiled at him and said, "Well, I'll try to keep that in mind." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You know, some people claim that the Romans believed that the earth was flat. They say that that belief contributed to their downfall." She had been staring at her hands during the moment when he went silent. She had been trying to think of something to say that wouldn't make her look like an idiot. She had decided that cultivating a friendship with this stranger might be worthwhile, since her brother was the only person she knew in New York, and there was nothing for her in Naples. But when he brought up the subject of the Romans and their beliefs, she breathed a sigh of relief. She knew a lot about ancient Rome, and she was glad he was willing to keep the conversation going because she couldn't think of anything intelligent to say. But she was good at asking questions. So she asked a question, hoping it would not offend. She said, "Why did they think the Romans believed in a flat earth, and how did that belief lead to their downfall?" He smiled, which reassured her. He liked her question. Then he said, "You are right to doubt that story. I doubt it myself, actually. I was just trying to make conversation." After he said that, he jumped to another topic. As she listened to him drone on about this and that, she thought about what it would be like to have him as a boyfriend, or at least, as a friend. She really needed a good, dependable friend. All she had in the world that she could count on was her brother. And he was constantly getting himself mixed up in something shady. But now he said he was going straight. And even if he wasn't, he had never given her a reason to distrust him. She was all he had left in the world, and she was sure that he would do whatever he could to keep her safe. After all, they were brother and sister. They were family. She turned her attention back to the man sitting beside her. Some of the things he talked about were interesting, and some were boring as hell, but then he asked her a question that made her uncomfortable. He said, "Mary, where do you do your shopping? For clothes, I mean." She was suddenly scared again, but she continued to smile. She said, "Why are you asking me about my clothes?" He said, "My family travels the world. You may or may not know this, but there are dark-skinned people in every country. Most of them are poor. We try to alleviate their poverty, but last year while in Naples, I found out that there were poor whites as well. I was told that white organizations were helping them, but then I found out that that was not true. No one was helping them. All of the aid was going to the dark-skinned people. So I used my own funds to buy clothes for poor white people. The blouse that you have on is from one of my donations." Mary looked aghast and said, "Is that why you were staring at me back in the airport?" "Yes," he said. "How do you know it's one of your donations? There must be a million blouses that look like this one." He cut her off by saying, "That blouse has a wine stain on it. The stain is very small, hard to see, most people wouldn't notice it, but I noticed it because I am the one who spilled the wine on it." Mary was almost in tears. She said, "So, I'm poor. Is that what you want to hear, Mr. Ubuntu?" "Yes, and I'm glad." "You're glad that I'm poor?" "No, Mary," he said. "I'm glad that you're not a thief. You are very beautiful, but stealing from the poor is very ugly. So, I was confused. How could someone so beautiful do something so ugly? But by you being poor, you have restored my faith in humanity. There is good in us after all. But I can see that I have embarrassed you. So let me tell you something embarrassing about me. Will that make us even?" "Go on," she said. "Tell me something embarrassing about yourself." Then he said, "My father wants me to marry an African princess." Mary's eyes rolled straight to the back of her head. Some men just don't know when to shut up. He had just come from Ethiopia. He had just met his Ethiopian bride-to-be. She was tall and well-endowed with female attributes. Her liquid brown eyes were almost black. She was very, very beautiful. But he didn't love her. Wasn't sure he could ever learn to love her. Mary had stopped listening to him talk about his Ethiopian bride-to-be and started grinding her teeth when the plane landed in New York. She got off the plane and said her final goodbyes to Mr. John Ubuntu. Nighttime had just fallen when she got in the limousine with her brother. In an attempt to put the tall soon-to-be-married-to-someone-else black man out of her mind, she said to her brother, "So Vince, tell me about this job you've got for me. You said you would fill me in on the details once I made it to New York. Well, here I am." Vince seemed hesitant. Then he said, "It's good work, pays well, and you're very beautiful. Should get lots of clients, and by the way, sis, did you tell anyone back in Naples you were coming here to see me?" "No," she said. "You told me not to, remember?" Mary noticed that her brother's hands were shaking, so she became nervous. She started looking around. Out the back window she noticed another limousine following them. It looked a lot like the limousine John Ubuntu had gotten into back at the airport. When she mentioned it to her brother, he said it was probably one of Mr. Vito's men, not John Ubuntu or Buntu or whoever. No black men would come this far into Little Italy without being invited by the boss. When their car finally stopped, her brother had her get out and stand in the headlights of another car so that Mr. Vito could get a good look at her. As she stood there, blinded by the lights, she heard a voice call out, "Cute face, but what does the rest of her look like? Have her take off that coat. In fact, have her take off her clothes." Her brother helped her take her coat off. Then, after a moment, the same voice said, "You have her coat, now have her take off the rest of her clothes." To which her brother asked, "How many?" And the voice said, "All of them. I want to see her naked." At which point her brother turned to her and said, "You heard the man." Mary screamed in her revulsion. "What, Vince? What kind of job are you trying to get me?" "Well," Vince said, "it's not exactly a job. You see, I owe Mr. Vito a lot of money. He said he would forgive my debt if I could provide him with a beautiful woman. You're the only beautiful woman I know." Unable to believe her ears, she said, "What? You're selling me? Vince, I'm your sister." "Yeah," Vince said, "but if I don't come up with some money, he's going to break both of my legs. I need my legs, sis. Besides, it's not like you've never had sex before." "Vince," she said quietly, "that's not true. I'm a virgin." "What? I'm a virgin. What about?" "He lied. I never did anything with him." Then Vince shouted into the darkness, "You hear that, Mr. Vito? My sister is a virgin. She's worth twice as much as my debt." The voice from beyond the lights shouted back, "A deal is a deal. Go back on your word and I'll have you killed right here and take your sister anyway. You hear that, sis? Vince said, my life versus your virginity. I know which one I'm going to choose. Then out of the darkness there was another voice. A voice from the plane. The voice of the man who had upgraded her to first class. The voice of John Ubuntu. But he did not say, unhand that woman, you fiend, as they do in the movies. Instead, he was quoting Shakespeare's Hamlet. Out of the darkness she heard, to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to take up arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing them, end them. Then the tall black stranger stepped into the light, and said, Mr. Vito, gentlemen, and Vince, this young lady is under my protection. You can walk away now, or crawl away later, but you will leave her alone. There was laughter all around in the dark. Then Mr. Vito's voice said, boy, I don't know where you think you are, but Harlem is 5 miles in that direction. I think you're lost. Must have missed a turn somewhere. More laughter in the dark. Then John said, that's a no then. Okay, I'm not armed, I don't have a gun, and you have 6 men with you, plus her brother. That makes 8 people against 1. Most of your guys are just as big as me, so I think we should be able to settle this with our fists. And to sweeten the deal, all of you get to attack me at once, and the winner gets the girl. One of Vito's men said, boss, this bozo must be some prize fighter from out of town, because I certainly don't recognize him. Let me beat the crap out of him for you. The man started hopping from foot to foot, slamming his fist into his palm. Overhearing the conversation, John said, no singles. I need you to attack me all at once, so I won't have to go chasing you down individually. That gets tiring after a while, and I don't have all night. And besides that, after I take out half of your men, the other half will take out their guns and try to shoot me. Can't have that. Someone might get killed, and that will be a much harder thing to explain to the police. Then, he turned to Mary and said, I need you to face away, and close your eyes. Cover your ears with your hands, and hum loudly to yourself. Things are about to happen here that no innocent person should have to see. Mary did as she was told. She hummed and bounced up and down on the balls of her feet, her knees slightly bent. She was sobbing and breathing hard when someone grabbed her wrist and pulled her hands away from her ears. She jumped in fright, and she really wanted to scream. But she knew if she did that, they would just beat her into submission. With her eyes still closed, she started to whimper and beg, not for herself, but for the crazy black man who had tried to help her. She said, please don't hurt him. Please, sir, please, 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 don't hurt him. He is just some crazy black man I met on the plane. He is really quite harmless. Then she heard his voice and opened her eyes. And she saw John Ubuntu standing before her without a scratch on him. And she mouthed the words, what in heaven's name? John said, it's okay, Mary. It's only me. You're safe now. The bad guys aren't going to hurt you anymore. Mary looked around. Her brother and 7 other men were on the ground groaning as though in pain. They were all still alive. No one was dead. She didn't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. Then a thought came to her and she said, where did your men go? My men? He asked, bewildered. Yeah, I understand now. You must have had a small army with you. That was why you were so bold and unafraid. John smiled at her and said, that is a good explanation. That's a better explanation than the one I was going to come up with. After John led her around a few of the fallen men, Mary asked, what do you mean? What explanation were you going to come up with? John said, I was going to say that they fell down the stairs. Mary looked around again and said, I don't see any stairs. Then John said, that's why your explanation is better. Now let's get out of here. Otherwise, we are going to have to explain this to the police. Less than an hour later, John was helping Mary check into the hotel where he was staying. She had just stopped shaking when he said, I'm going to get you your own room down the hall from mine. Also, I'm going to set you up with a line of credit. Think $10,000 will be enough? Mary looked at him and started shaking again. His words reminded her that she was destitute. She was a lone girl in a big city totally dependent on the kindness of a stranger. With a voice that was cracking, she said, Mr. Ubuntu, I don't want your money. John looked shocked. Then he said, Mary, I'm sorry. I was just trying to help. Her tears started to flow and she said, Mr. Ubuntu, I'm not a charity case. A bluff. She needed a bluff right now. But she was all out. Her mind wasn't working right. Then she thought of something. On the plane, when John had upgraded her to first class, and she asked him about it, he had said that honesty was the best policy. So now it was time for her to be honest. So she said, Mr. Ubuntu, I'm not a charity case. I'm a basket case. Between sniffles, she said, you want to give me $10,000. I don't know what to do with that kind of money. I've never had that kind of money in my life. She tried to compose herself to no avail. Then she said, When I was growing up, I watched a lot of pretty young girls from my neighborhood go out into the world to make their fortune. They made or was given lots of money, but they didn't know what to do with it. So, they ended up right back where they started, broke and destitute, their youth and beauty gone. I don't want that to be me. She looked away from him and tried to compose herself again. Then she looked up at him and continued, I don't want your money. I want your help. Will you help me? When she was in school, she had learned that the biology of mammals was different from the biology of reptiles. When a predatory reptile comes across a smaller and weaker one of its kind, the strong will often kill and eat the weak. Mammals, such as wolves in the same pack, are different. They help each other. In an attempt to tap into his mammalian instinct, she stood ready to expose her throat and hope for mercy. She said, Your Ethiopian bride, is she coming here anytime soon? No, he said. She's not coming here at all. She's staying in Ethiopia. Mary walked to the nearest wall and leaned against it for support. She had something to say to this man, and his response could tear her apart. He had all the cards and she had none. She was going to have to expose her throat. She said, Mr. Ubuntu, why do I need my own room? Why can't I stay with you in yours? He cleared his throat and said, Mary, you're a virgin. He had walked to the wall with her and was now close enough to where she could put her hand over his mouth. Stop him from talking. She needed to talk to the mammal and the man. But she couldn't do it in the hallway. Someone might see. She said, Can we just go to your room, please? I don't want to talk about it here. He agreed, and they walked to his room. After he opened the door, he stood back so she could enter first. But the thought of what she was about to do made her dizzy. Her legs gave out, and she almost fell. He caught her before she hit the floor and carried her across the threshold and placed her on the bed. He got her a glass of water. She had to sit up to drink it. He sat on a chair beside the bed. Then he said, I need to talk to someone. I need to tell someone why I don't want to marry this Ethiopian girl. Mary thought that the room was excessively hot. She was finding it hard to breathe. She started to unbutton her blouse, not to seduce him, but to cool down. She was hot and couldn't breathe. He reached up and grabbed her hands and said, No. You are probably in shock from what happened to you in the parking lot. I won't take advantage of a helpless person. His mammal was speaking to her. His mammal had recognized her as one of its own kind, weak and helpless, and in need of care. She was safe for now. She could relax. After she calmed down, he released her hands and sat back in his chair and said, I need to tell someone why I don't want to marry this woman that my father picked out for me. With those words, she finally understood his dilemma. His family believed in arranged marriages, and if he didn't go alone, he would be disinherited. She smiled at him then and said, Seems to me that what you want doesn't matter. Your father is in charge of the family, and you have family obligations. I understand that, and I will not interfere with your life. I'll be your woman on the side if that's what you want. He sighed and said, You're not listening to me. That statement actually sent fear through her. She was doing the wrong thing, but she didn't know what it was. She had said something wrong. She was talking instead of listening. Then she remembered a line from Shakespeare, and she said, Speak, I am bound to hear. Then her brain told her, Shut up, stupid. You're making things worse. Then she remembered the things about seduction that a streetwalker had told her. Drop your shoulders, pull your elbows in, head down and look up. Keep your legs together at the knees, but don't cross your ankles. Be the Christmas present that he opens when he's ready. When she did all of these things, he looked at her and shook his head. No. Apparently he had had an Italian prostitute before and wasn't impressed. So she decided to stop acting and just be herself. After he got her to relax, he said, In Ethiopia they practice female circumcision. The procedure stops a woman from fully enjoying sex. It takes away their lust. Sex becomes her duty to her husband, not love shared between two people. When I marry, I want my wife to wake up and see me as a husband, and not as an obligation. A circumcised woman can't love me the way I want and need to be loved. I want a woman that I can take to the mountaintop of ecstasy. That can't happen with a woman who has had her genitals mutilated. Mary suddenly realized what he was trying to say. Then she said, John, you mean this wife of yours can never have an orgasm? Wait a minute, he said. You're a virgin. How do you know that word? She smiled to herself and said, What word? You mean orgasm. John, people talk around virgins. After he got over the fact that she knew a few dirty words, he said, And she's not my wife yet. Mary thought about the words he had just spoken. Not my wife yet. That meant that he was still free to be with other people. Yet here he was, with a woman in his bed, and he was not ravishing her. I must be doing something very wrong, she thought to herself. Everything the streetwalkers had ever told her about men was incorrect. They didn't know men as well as they thought. Probably explains why they were streetwalkers instead of wives. The room was silent for a long while. Then, while looking down at her hands, Mary said, "John, I just thought of something." He looked at her and said, "What?" She looked at him and said, "I don't know how to seduce a man. I don't know how to become a mistress, a woman on the side." Then she looked away from him. She was embarrassed now. But what else could she do? What else could she say? Then she looked back at him and said, "I don't want to be a virgin anymore. I was saving myself for my husband. But all the good men are taken. I'm saving myself for nothing. I'm going to tell you something no woman should ever tell any man she has just met." John smiled sadly and said, "And what is that?" And she said, "I love you, John Ubuntu." He jumped up suddenly and said, "We just met." She laid down on the bed and said, "I knew you were going to say that, and that's why I shouldn't have told you. But you've said things to make me fall in love with you." "What?" John asked in bewilderment. She said, "When we were flying over the Atlantic, you said that if the plane went down and you could save only one person, it would be me. And in the parking lot of those abandoned buildings, you told 8 armed men that I was under your protection and you made it stick. You did all of that for me. How could I not fall in love with you?" "Mary," he said, "you are probably feeling helpless right now. You may feel that sex is all you have left to offer, but that's not true. You have a lot to offer a man who is worthy of you. And there's this other thing. If we end up in a long-term relationship, you're going to look back on this night. I am not going to do anything tonight that might come back to haunt me 10 years from now, and right now, I think you're in shock, and I don't want to take advantage of you." "John," she said back to him, "I'm not in shock, and if I am, then learning about sex from someone as nice as you might help me think about something other than my problems. John, there is nothing for me back in Naples. That's why I came here to meet my brother. And you see how that went. You're the first decent man I've met in my life. And I promise not to hold anything that happens tonight against you, ever." Then he said, "Well, I don't see why I should take that chance." They both sat quietly for a long time. Then she said, "John, will you dim the lights?" When John jumped in his seat, she said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to attack you in the dark. I was just sitting here trying to figure out why I love you. I was trying to make up a poem, but I think I've composed a song instead. Would you like for me to sing it to you?" "Sure," he said. "And if I can sing this song, that means that I am not in shock. And one day, if not tonight or tomorrow, but one day, we will visit the mountain of ecstasy together, and you can show me what I've been missing all my adult life." "Sure," he said as he got up and dimmed the lights, and she started to sing.
Your eyes are brown and mine are blue, but that doesn't explain why I love you. Wherever you roam, wherever you call home, that's the place where I belong. Why do I love you? I don't know. My eyes seem to follow wherever you go. Beyond the ends of the earth, beyond the ends of the sea. If you ever fall in love, let it be with me. I know you have others, Why do I love you?